Hello. Today I will be talking to you about sports delivery systems and how they help athletes from a young age develop into professional athletes. This analysis is about how George Smith went through the sports delivery system in rugby union, focusing on the types of competitions, sporting events and its organisational structure, also including how the delivery systems in rugby have changed from when George Smith went through till now, when younger players are going through the rugby union sports system in Australia. George Smith is one of World Rugby's best open-side flankers and one of Australia's greatest players to grace the game. The reason that I have selected George Smith as my Australian athlete is that he is one of the athletes that I look up to and is an excellent player and a great role model. The biography about George Smith is titled George Smith: The Biography and was published by Allen and Unwin in 2011 and written by Rupert Guinness. Rupert Guinness is a commended senior sports writer who writes for the Sydney Morning Herald. He has covered 15 Tour de France's and he also writes about rugby union, rowing and many other sports. Besides Smith's freakish ability to be able to play rugby at such a high level from such a young age, he wouldn't have been able to accomplish this without the help of the development systems that were in place at the time. They helped Smith go through the ranks and become the professional sportsman he is. What is a sports delivery system? There is no set definition for the term sports delivery systems, but one way that it can be defined is by a range of agencies combine, compete, and contribute to the delivery of sport for all. These agencies and the competitions and services they deliver to participants at whatever level they are able to achieve comprise the delivery systems of sport. The reason that these delivery systems are so important to the players is that it allows a clear pathway and a guideline to follow, and it gives the players the best opportunity to play their desired sport professionally. If a player wants to play a sport professionally, they will need to understand which pathways are offered in order for them to be able to achieve this. Being able to understand and examine a sports delivery system is important for a player because they will know what steps are taken to play professional sport and how these agencies are going to help them develop as a player both on and off the field. From a young age, Smith had been involved in sport because he looked up to his brothers who were quite good. Beginning at quite a young age, George Smith played rugby union, and around the age of 11, he began playing rugby league as well. He became involved in this because his family enjoyed all sports, but particularly both codes of rugby. Having such natural talent, Smith began his representative career at the age of 15 for the Sydney under-15 representative side. He then continued this the following year by playing for the Sydney under-16s representative side. The under-16s national competition is one of the first major competitions that rugby union representative players participate in. This allows the best in the nation at that current level to show the selectors that they have the potential to go through the system. Through this national championship, they selected an under-16s Australian team, which Smith made. He then went on to play at the under-18s championship the year after for New South Wales, the combined high schools seconds team. Then after playing the tournament, they selected the best players to form the Australia A team, or the second Australia team. And then he went on to play for the Australian schools team that same year. From this, Smith then played for Manly, starting in the under-20s. Then being as good as he was, he progressed to the first grade team, and then was selected in the under-19s New South Wales side. From this, they then competed at a national championship, and an Australian under-19 side was formed. This particular year for George was special because he was also able to play for the under-21s due to an injury in their squad. Making the under-19s Australian side, Smith was then contracted as a young talent to the Brumbies and only trained with them at that current time. During the same year, while Smith was still contracted with the Brumbies, he made the under 21s Australian team. The pathway then continued from there for Smith, and he eventually played for the Wallabies at the end of his first Super 12 season. Since George Smith has gone through the system, there have been multiple changes to how the system is run. For example, there is no longer an under-16s Australian team, and due to funding cuts there is no longer an Australian A schools team. A different pathway that instead of there being a representative team for all ages, there is now a different pathway that the ARU have made, which makes it easier and clearer for selectors and players. For a player in the ACT, the pathway is as follows. The Brumbies Junior Academy, which has 4 tiers to it. Tier 4 includes the ACT Junior Rugby Union, under 13s and 14s representative squads, and the under 15s Junior Gold Cup squad. Tier 3 includes the under 16s National Championship team and the under 17s Junior Gold Cup squad. The Junior Gold Cup squads play in a national competition that is more a developmental competition rather than to provide a victor, but still considered a national tournament with pools. And as the event draws closer to the end, it becomes an elimination tournament with the quarterfinals, semi-finals, and finals. The national competitions that the players had to compete at were competitions that were formatted in the style of a group tournament. A group tournament style competition is designed to have one winner by the most valid means possible. At each competition, there are 2 divisions. Division 1 has 8 teams and holds up the top tier teams such as New South Wales 1 and 2, Queensland 1 and 2, ACT, Victoria, Western Australia, and the Combined States team. Division 2 has 4 teams and holds Tier 2 teams such as South Australia, Northern Territory, National Indigenous side, and a second Victoria team. Since Division 1 has 8 teams, it is split into 2 pools, so there is 4 in each. Pool A and Pool B. The winner of the competition is determined by the first in Pool A playing against the first in Pool B. Tier 2 includes the ACT schoolboys under 18s, the Australian schoolboys, and the Youth 7s. Tier 1 includes the Brumbies under 20s and the Combined States 20s. From here, the junior pathway splits into 2 separate paths, Senior Club Rugby and the NRC squads. This is where you play for a club in the Senior Club Rugby is where you play for a club in the Canberra region in the John Ident Cup. From this competition, they select a variety of representative teams. These teams include the Brumbies Provincial side, the ACT Sevens side, and the ACT Griffins. The second path, the NRC, is where is where each state has its own team, and they compete in an end-of-season competition, which gives the players a chance to get contracted to a Super Rugby team. These squads have only recently been brought back as a way to further develop players on the rise. The best competitors in this competition from the local competition are selected and put into the ACT NRC team. Also at the level of the NRC is the Australian under-20s and the Australian men's 7s. For the players to reach these levels, they need to attend trials, which are hosted by the state Super Rugby team. At a local level, the progression of athletes that the clubs provide is to train them and give them a sense of the game and each individual technique in the game to provide a great enough base to help them in being selected for trials from their representative teams. For Smith to have been selected in the junior representative teams, he would have had to have attended these trials and performed well enough to be selected in the rep team. At a state level, the responsibility of the coaches is to develop the players' skills so that they are better equipped to compete at their competitions. From the state level, the developmental side is a very important part in why Smith was able to maintain his playing ability and the way that he progressed through the sports system at that time. At the state level, the state level is where they make selections for the national teams. So the development that Smith went through at this level would have been crucial for his selection in the national team. The national level is where coaches are responsible for the national team competing at the best of their ability and winning the competitions that they have been involved in. For Smith to be playing at the national level, he would really need to succeed at the Super Rugby level first, and to be able to maintain his excellent performance. Each level of organisation did contribute to the success of George Smith because they each helped his skills and give him a great foundation to build off as he grew and excelled in rugby. Though the level that contributed the most to his progression is the local level. This is because at the local level he was able to develop a strong foundation and a set of skills to be able to achieve his high level of success. To show how George Smith excelled in rugby, here is a timeline which shows some of his best sporting achievements in his career. Representing Australia at the under-16s national level in 1996. In 1997, representing Australia for the Australian A schools team. In 1997 again, representing Australia in the Australian schools team. In 1998, representing Australia in the Australian schools team again. In 2000, getting contracted by the Brumbies at age 19. 2000, making his first Super Rugby debut in a 51-10 win over the Sharks at age 19. In 2000, he debuted for the Wallabies at age 19 at the end of the Super Rugby season against France. In 2001, he cemented his starting position in the Brumbies starting lineup. In 2001, he scored his first Wallabies try. And in 2008, he was the first player to exceed 100 appearances, or the fifth Brumbies to exceed 100 appearances, which he had 107 of. Rupert Guinness seemed as though he sort of understood the sports delivery systems, but it was hard to see this as there was not much shown throughout the text. The reason that I believe this to be the case is because in the biography Guinness wrote more about the experience that Smith had adapting to playing at rugby at an elite level from a young age. I think that Guinness only briefly touched on his representative history as a junior going through the system within the book, because within the book he had a timeline showing his career in brief, which helped understand the pathway that Smith undertook. But in saying this, he did write about how Smith came to progress to the professional level through his junior years and the players that he looked up to. I already knew about the changes in the rugby system and the changed pathway because I have been through the junior pathway and am trying to continue through the senior part of the pathway. The new system is effective and provides players with equal opportunity to succeed, and if they are willing and talented enough to do what is required. The system can be improved though by having more of a push from local clubs to get more players involved, which will increase the talent pool and possible success of teams from around the country and the national team itself. In conclusion, we have covered how George Smith made his way into the rugby world and cementing himself as one of the world's best open-side flankers. Also covered the way the new system of rugby works in the ACT and the pathway that is known as the Pathway to Gold by the ACT Rugby Union. Finally, also covered how the national championships are run and why they are run this way.